إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم بلغ رسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد إن شاء الله اليوم سنتحدث عن أهمية الوقت وسعادة الحقيقية. إن بعض الناس يظن أن السعادة في تكديس المال أو جمع ثروات وبناء العقارات والقصور، ولكن هم كثرة قلق، دائما تجدهم في قلق وخوف. إذن أين السعادة؟ السعادة في طاعة الله عز وجل. يا الله سبحانه وتعالى يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك. Today in our short khutbah we wanted to talk about the importance of time. Why time is so important for Muslims and for human beings. And when we use this time, we achieve true happiness. And true happiness is not by gaining a lot of wealth or accumulating a lot of real estate or building big, large homes or castles. And this word that we chose in the muqaddimah, the introduction, is taqdees. Taqdees means you have a wallet, it's full already, and you just try to stuff it more and nothing goes inside. And many times we get distracted. And so the more we try to do this taqdees, it actually causes us to have more anxiety and more worries. And so this true happiness does not come in this dream that we think that we have. But true happiness has been shown over and over to be through the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is broad. It is to do many things. But because many times we get preoccupied in this distraction of this world, we forget the importance of time. So much so that we don't have 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes to reflect on ourselves, on our lives, and how to use this time in our lives to the best of our advantage. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about time in the short surah that we all know, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. That by Asr, which is the time, of course, between Asr and Maghrib, till the sun sets. Also it means the declining day. The Asr time is when the day is declining. We're starting to feel this loss of the day. And of course Asr also means time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that indeed man, innal insana lafi khusr. Not al-khusr, but khusr. Yani completely general terms, not a specific type, but all types of khusr. Nakira, indefinite. We could have loss of many things, simple things. Like when some of you like me, if you dropped your children off recently, this weekend or last weekend to college, you feel this sadness, like subhanAllah, like my child is now leaving my home. It's not the same. Maybe they come back, but before they might have asked you to do something with them. But you said, I'm too busy. I don't have time. And now we see this is a form of loss too, where we lose this time that we had, this precious time with our children, and now that time doesn't ever come back. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us by not using this time, we will surely be in loss. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, except those who believe and do good deeds. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And then we encourage each other, because it takes a lot of sabr, and we forget sometimes our priorities. That's why we have to have good friends and a community that reminds us. Because people in this country and in the world are forgetting what's right and what's important. They may accumulate and get together in a national convention to talk about freedom and justice, but they will forget the most basic injustices that happen in the world, and they won't even mention them, because they're worrying more about building their wealth, building their fame, building their positions. But in the end, they will increase more in worry and stress and loss, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. So this thing of time is very important, that we must really hold on to. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, نِعْمَتَانْ مَغْبُونٌ فِيهِمَا كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. There's two blessings that people will be very sorry and oblivious almost. They won't even know that they're losing them. الصِّحَّةُ وَالْفَرَاغُ. Our health and our free time. It will come. As we get older, we start losing things. We think that, I'll retire and I'll have all of this now wealth and things that I've accumulated. But actually, as we get older, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that you are losing. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. You start losing your health. You start losing your parents. Your children go away. Maybe we lose money too. We start losing. But if we're attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is never a loss. And so we should try our best to use this time that we have before we don't have this time again. اغتنم خمس قبل خمس. Use 5 blessings before they're taken away from you. شبابك قبل حرمك. The youth before you become old. صحتك قبل سقمك. And we know this famous hadith that your health before you get sick, your mal before you become faqriq, and your free time before you become shughliq, before you become busy, and your life before you die. حياتك قبل موتك. And so we should always try to remember on our time. How do we use our time? Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said, al-waqtu kas-sayf. Time, al-waqt, is like a sword. فِإِنْ قَطَعْتُهُ وَإِلَّا قَطَعْكَ. Either you cut this, time is like a sword. Either you cut with it or it cuts you. Either we organize our time and use it well, or it will cut us into pieces. It will be a cause of great loss to us. So we try our best to use this time in the best possible way. So there's 3 types of time, and that's what we wanted to talk about. There's 3 types of time. Al-yawm, ayyamu thalatha. Al-amsu qad mada bima fihi. The past is something that we will never get back. وَغَدًا لَعَلَّكَ تُدْرِكُ. Tomorrow is a possibility, we may not get to it. وَإِنَّمَا هُوَ يَوْمُكَ هَذَا فَاجْتَهِدْ فِيهِ. That today is the only time that you have. So do the best you can today. Because the past is gone. There's nothing we can do, of course, learn lessons from it. The future is what we spend a lot of time on. We say that inshallah I will have this future, and yes, we should have amal. We should have hope. We should plan. We should do our best to, harvest and protect it for a rainy day and for a cold winter. But the most of our time should be worrying about today. What have I done today? And this is what they call mindfulness. Ta'ammul dhihni. To think about today. And this is also goes from our Islamic teachings of mindfulness. Imam Ghazali, Ibn al-Qayyim, all of them spoke about this, that this mindfulness is part of ihsan, is to know where our time is and what we are doing, and not let the mind be overcome by the future or the past, to where we don't enjoy the moment, we don't relish the moment. And that is what salah is. 5 times a day we are asked to stop everything that we were doing, not think about the past, not think about the future, but hadir, now, salah, Allahu Akbar. It is a built-in way to reset our time, because once we start focusing on the present, we start to feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We start to feel what are the priorities in our life. We start to notice that, yes, I'm losing time, and I have to make the best of this time. But we live in a time of social media, and because of this social media, which never stops, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, they never stop. Before, when I was younger, you would turn off the TV at 10 and it would just be snowflakes on the TV. Now it's constant. Social media never stops. The texting, the WhatsApp messages, they never stop. So what is some things that are happening because of this? Thalathatu amrad. The first one is qalaq, anxiety. When something doesn't stop, you are part of this movement that never actually takes a break and never has ta'ammul, then what happens? It builds a lot of anxiety. So we should not be attached to something and always try to keep up with something that never stops. We have to take breaks from it. We have to be careful with it. And we have to know that sometimes we sit down and 2 hours later we're still on social media or scrolling through something. After that, you feel a sense of a lot of anxiety. You say, I'll take a break, and then later you feel that you have so much anxiety, because most of the things that you see, you can't have or you can't control. You see somebody getting out of this beautiful car into this mansion with all of these things, and these are some things maybe not suitable for you or for us, and it causes a lot of anxiety. And then it causes al-kasal, laziness. You sit there and you watch and watch and watch, do nothing, and just watch. And this brings upon a decrease of himmah, decrease of spiritual aspiration and aspiration in general. We become lazy because of this constant wasting of time. And then the last thing causes ghafla, heedlessness, where we watch something on YouTube and the next thing we know there's a commercial with a woman who's not dressed well, or something haram, and we fall into this ghafla. We become heedless of the sin that we were watching and being part of. And of course, this all goes back to making us feel afraid and wasting our time. The most important element in our life is our time, which is always going down. So we have to do our best to hold on to this time and to make the most of it. And in the second half of the khutbah, we'll give some advice of Imam Ghazali of things we should do yawmiyan, every day, to make sure that that day was a successful day. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Our great scholars of the past, and we need to learn about them because we're living in a time where people don't have time. That's one of the great tragedies of life, where we had the scholars that would sit for hours and Allah put barakah in their time, and they could think and they could guide and they could give us nasiha. We don't have that now, so we learn about them. They said that the heart is tarnished by 2 matters. It becomes sick. في قلوبهم مرض. In the heart there becomes a disease for 2 reasons. One is ghafla, which is actually unmindfulness, not thinking, not realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is present. The ghafla and ithm and sin. Anytime the heart has sin and ghafla, it becomes tarnished. It becomes sick. So how do we polish the heart? By seeking istighfar. It's simple. We can all say astaghfirullah. We can say this. And then remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Simple remembrance. Say subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah. Have a wird, have a maybe a tasbih, something, a subha to remind us to make dhikr, yawmiyan. So every day Imam Ghazali said that 4 things we should do, which will make part of our spiritual practice, and this will remove the ghafla from our heart. And make sure when we do this, even if we're really busy, that day will be a successful day. And one is dua, to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every day, for anything that we need. Make dhikr, simple dhikr, subhanallah, the tasbih, any type of dhikr. Recite the Quran with remembrance, ta'ammul, fikr. Think about what we're reading, even if it's 10 ayat. And then contemplation, fikr. What is my life? What am I doing? What did I do today? What's going on? This is what the Prophet ﷺ did. He used to go to the cave and not talk to anyone. We have to have time where we're alone with ourselves, because there's no one to impress or to do anything with. And this will make us feel what they call centered. That's what psychologists say, centered. That whenever something happens, you're centered. You don't go to one extreme or the other. Like they say in the Quran, harf. You're not on a harf, on an edge. You don't quickly fall over. You're centered where you can handle many things. And there's a story of a farmer where his best horse ran away. And the people came and they said, subhanallah, your horse ran away. You must be so sad. He said, maybe. He said, what? Maybe? What a weird answer. The next day, the horse came back with 3 thoroughbreds. He said, subhanallah, you're so lucky. You have 3 extra horses now. He said, maybe. And then he said, what? You have 3 horses. Then his son started to ride the horse. He fell off the horse and he hurt his leg. He said, subhanallah, your son, he's so young now, he's going to maybe have this permanent problem. He said, maybe. He said, you're very strange. And then the army came the next day. And they said, we're picking up all of the men and boys that can fight. Oh, but your son, at this time, he's not able to fight. So they said, oh wow, look, your son is saved from this. He said, maybe. Meaning that we don't know the khayr. We don't know where the barakah is. We just go every day and we're mindful of that day. We don't think too much, what's going to happen? What could I have done? Yes, we do some contemplation. But most of our time is today. What can I do now to make myself, because the more we practice today, the better we become tomorrow. That is for sure. And we may not have a tomorrow, but at least by completing the day well, we have succeeded in this life. And that is what they mean by having this focus of today, which leads to decreased anxiety and leads to more istiqamah, more ihsan in our salah, in our life, in our relationships with people, where we're not sitting at dinner and thinking about something else. And then our children are gone, we never had a bond with them. And this is a new phase of life that all of a sudden we find ourselves in. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us this fikr and hamiyatul waqt, to the importance of time and to use it well, and to remember the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا تقبل دعاء ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في غزة وفي بنغلاديش وفي العراق وفي لبنان وفي غزة وفي كل مكان يا رب العالمين اللهم إنهم جرحى فداوهم عطشى فاسقهم اللهم بدل خوفهم أمنا يا ذا الجلال والعزة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help all of our brothers and sisters in Palestine, in Gaza, and all of the different lands of the Muslimin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help unite our hearts, remove our distresses, make our iman firm on the kalima of la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Ibadallah, inna Allah ya'muru bil 'adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa ينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقيموا الصلاة.